All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon, or good morning, depending on your location. We're really thrilled to have you joining us today. The launch of a new Catalyst Fund grant cycle is always a really exciting moment for us, because we know we'll have the opportunity in the coming weeks to learn more about some really incredible work happening all over the country. So thanks so much for joining. My name is John Peterson. I'm the director of the Network for Landscape Conservation, and I'm super excited to be sharing today's webinar with you all. We'll spend maybe 30 to 35 minutes or so. Hopefully, we'll move pretty quickly, providing some background on the Catalyst Fund and the 2025 RFP. And then we'll use the remaining time to pick up and respond to any questions that you may have as you think about if and how the Catalyst Fund might be an appropriate um, target for funding. I'm super excited to be joined today by Kelly Watkinson, who is the Land and Climate Program Director at the Land Trust Alliance. And we're really thrilled to be partnering and aligning with the Land and Climate Grant Program that LTA runs to allow Catalyst Fund applicants to apply for both programs simultaneously. So Kelly's going to provide some background too on LTA's Land and Climate Program as we move into the webinar. Um, when we do get to the end of the webinar and we're into the questions, I have a series of questions that we got in the registration process, and we'll start with some of those. But please, by all means, continue to add questions to the chat as we move through the webinar, and we'll look forward to picking those up as we have the time at the end. Um, I think I just wanted to offer maybe two quick reflections, and recognizing this moment of time that we're in, and as we're facing immense amounts of uncertainty and disruption to the work that we're doing in the communities that we're grounded in. First, I think from our vantage point at NLC, the work that you all are doing in landscapes and communities across the country, it's all the more important and critical now than ever before. The collaboratives that you all are coordinating and stewarding and sustaining, and that ability to bring together and align a breadth of interests and perspectives, to envision a better future for the landscapes and the communities that you care about. That's really where we're going to find the creativity and the energy, and the resilience to continue forward in really productive ways. So continue on doing the work that you're doing, and know that it is taking on increased importance even now. The second just sort of reflection I have in these moments is that it is so important to have space for connection and for community. And I'm sure you all are feeling that and seeing that in your individual landscapes and in your relationships you have with partners, in your own geographic contexts. And we at NLC sense that and see that and see the importance of that across landscapes too. And so we really hope that this webinar is a chance to connect with practitioners from across the connect country and start to feel some of that sense of community. Um, and maybe just a broader note on that too. Please, as we move through this webinar, take a few moments to use the chat and let us know how we at NLC can create connection and community spaces in helpful ways right now. Please use that chat to share with us what you're feeling you need in this moment, and what, if any, of those connection and conversation spaces NLC can provide to support you and your work in the coming weeks and months. We really are keenly aware that there is that need to find spaces to plug into and connect to something that feels bigger and feels um, more connected to the world around us, and finding those outlets that allow us to move forward with work that we feel is meaningful and fulfilling and purposeful. That's really important right now, and we at NLC are really thinking about how we can support this broader community of practice right now. So again, um, please feel free to share during the webinar as we move forward, and appreciate any insights you have. With that being said, I just wanted to, again, I'm going to move in and provide some background on the Catalyst Fund. We launched the Catalyst Fund in 2019, and it really was in response to a very clear need we saw in the field. It has become and increasingly clear that successful landscape conservation and stewardship, it's really predicated on collaboration, the ability to work across boundaries, across jurisdictions, on issues that transcend the capacity of any single agency, entity, organization to address on their own. And yeah, even as that's become acknowledged and recognized, there's very little dedicated funding that's available to support the collaboration and invest in the collaborative process. And what we know, of course, and what you all experience daily, I'm sure, is that the reality is it takes a tremendous amount of time and energy and effort to build and sustain collaboration. We think of that as the disconnect, the collaboration disconnect. It's so clear that this is critical, and yet so little resources are available. And that's really where we've aimed the Catalyst Fund. The Catalyst Fund makes strategic investments in strengthening the collaborative capacity of place-based, community-grounded landscape partnerships. Our hope is that by making those investments, we can catalyze the growth and development of those partnerships. So they're really better positioned to advance and achieve long-term landscape conservation and stewardship success in the landscapes in which they're working. The Catalyst Fund is a regrant program, so we're incredibly appreciative to the Doris Duke Foundation and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation for their support of the Catalyst Fund. We're also incredibly proud and thrilled to have a portion of the Catalyst Fund dedicated to supporting Indigenous leadership in landscape conservation and stewardship. And my, I don't know if you all can hear that. My dog is barking because my daughter's going home right now, and so sorry for the distraction if you can hear. I'm going to try to continue. So again, a portion of the Catalyst Fund is dedicated to supporting Indigenous leadership in landscape conservation and stewardship, and partnerships that are led by tribes and/or Indigenous organizations and communities, and that are working to advance Indigenous landscape conservation and stewardship priorities, are especially encouraged to apply. I'm sorry, my slides don't seem to have populated fully. Hopefully it's better. The Catalyst Fund is really oriented around two core parameters. We fund landscape partnerships that are at pivotal points in partnership development. I'm going to touch on these briefly in this webinar, but would direct you all to the applicant guidance document for much more background on these two core parameters of the Catalyst Fund. Encourage you to read that. So first, this notion of landscape partnerships. We use partnerships as an umbrella term, and to reflect any number of differing collaboratives, networks, working groups, coalitions that are really working to bring together individuals and entities into long-term collaboration, and are building that shared vessel that allows partners to come together collectively over time to work towards a shared vision for their landscape. You can see the 5 characteristics that we identify and reflect on in terms of landscape partnerships in the context of the Catalyst Fund. Place-based, we're looking for those collaboratives, those partnerships that are focused on a specific landscape, a specific geography. Long-term conservation purpose, um, again, should be oriented towards a shared long-term multi-issue conservation and stewardship purpose. We're looking for those partnerships that really work holistically and across issues to chart a course for the landscape as a whole into the future. The third one, collaboratively governed, looking for those collaboratives, those partnerships that really reflect collaborative leadership that are comprised of a breadth of partners coming together and sharing and decision making and course setting. The fourth, community grounded and inclusive. We're looking for those partnerships that are really rooted in landscape and within community, and working to bring a breadth of partners and a breadth of perspectives together, and can really be a vehicle that serves to bridge sectors, interests, and cultures to build common ground and collective vision for the future of the landscape. And finally, the last parameter, informed, really looking for those partnerships that ground their work in um, a set of knowledges that shape forward progress. Um, the last note here on just this notion of landscape partnerships in the RFP. We talk a lot about how these characteristics are pointing at a transformative rather than transactional approach to collaboration. And that's a distinction we draw and reflect on. And I think I would suggest that historically, the conservation and stewardship field has oriented a little bit more towards a transactional approach to collaboration, by which I mean come to our table and help us solve the problems that we want to solve and achieve the goals that we've identified. And I think where we see potential for landscape partnerships is orienting a little bit more towards a transformative approach to collaboration. That if you keep the metaphor going, that really works to build a table together. And so bringing people together to co-create an understanding of the problems that the specific place or set of communities is navigating and facing, and really working to co-create together the goals and what a desired future for that place might look like. And then and only then sort of setting out to work together and start to advance action to realize that future. Much more background on all of that in the applicant guidance document. I'm seeing the chats about the dog happiness, so appreciate the patience and understanding there. Um, the second parameter of the Catalyst Fund is this notion of, sorry, I don't think that slide fully loaded. This notion of pivotal points in partnership development. What we've observed is that partnerships or collaboratives often encounter a critical bottleneck in that transition from collective vision to collective action. As folks come together and have sort of agreed on identifying and co-creating that sense of shared vision, the ability to take steps and start to implement action that accelerates progress towards that shared vision, that's often where there's a need for additional backbone organization support and capacity and resources for the core task of bringing people together and pursuing key process activities. And so that's where we've focused and the belief that dedicated investments at this point can be really helpful in overcoming and moving through that bottleneck and accelerating forward progress as that partnership tries to advance its conservation and stewardship goals. The diagram we have on the screen here is from the applicant guidance document, and I would encourage you all to spend more time with that. And we really offer the diagram as a bit of a heuristic. There's certainly no single right way to build a partnership, but many do follow similar progressions, and we've overly generalized them to these three stages of starting, building, and conserving. That transition from collective vision to collective action, which is in many ways the sweet spot for the Catalyst Fund, often is typically in the building stage, as defined by this diagram. Again, just to underscore, this is a highly generalized depiction of partnership development. And the process is almost never linear and is certainly not, um, the stages are not entirely discrete or separate. And so the key point in sharing this diagram is just to invite you all as applicants to think about where you are in the development process of your partnership, and be able to explain to us how this is really a pivotal point for your development as you move forward. The Catalyst Fund typically does not consider proposals for the launching of new partnerships. The one exception there is for tribal-led partnerships, and in recognition of historic inequities and lack of access to resources, we do invite tribal-led partnerships that are in the process of forming and launching to submit proposals. And so we will consider proposals from tribal-led partnerships at earlier stages in development. Um, having a little issues with my slides, I think, but hopefully they're coming through well. So anyway, just sort of a quick summary, a couple of key points that I've touched on. Strong proposals will be clearly structured around advancing specific elements of collaborative capacity within a landscape partnership, and will also be able to demonstrate how a modest strategic investment will have that significant impact in solidifying momentum and better positioning that partnership to accelerate its progress over the long term towards its group's conservation and stewardship goals. I've been talking a lot about collaborative capacity, and we use collaborative capacity extensively in the RFP. And so I just wanted to pause for a moment to run through a little bit of background on collaborative capacity, which I think is it's a somewhat amorphous and conceptual term. And I think it leaves us prone to talking past one another sometimes. And so just pausing to bring some specificity to how we think about collaborative capacity. In the simplest of terms, we think of collaborative capacity as those elements that are really needed to allow groups of partners to be capable of functioning effectively across organizations and entities towards a shared purpose. And so this diagram you see on the screen right now we've adapted it from some thinking that our colleagues at the California Landscape Stewardship Network have really pushed forward around a framework for collaborative capacity. This framework describes the six structural elements, which are the white text within the triangle, and also describes three what we call binding elements, the sort of chartreuse text, I guess, yellowish green, that form the legs of the triangle. And so those structural elements, those are specific and we think fundable needs that create the scaffolding, if you will, that allows a collaborative to function over time. So coordination capacity, that basic staffing support and sort of coordination glue, if you will, that holds together a collaborative. Systems and infrastructure, we think of that as the basic operational and communication structures that allow for really for that internal connectivity, alignment, and internal and external communication information flow. Decision-making structures. One of the unique challenges of collaboratives or partnerships is that they operate and exist in the space between organizations. And so what we found is there really needs to be transparent, clear, commonly understood pathways for reaching decisions and navigating decisions. So those decision-making structures are really critical. Collaborative practices, skills, tools. Again, working in the space between organizations requires a unique skill set that differs from what many of us have been called upon to develop and deliver in our professional spaces. So, what are those knowledges, skills, abilities, tools that allow us to operate effectively in these spaces? The fifth, shared strategies and priorities. Again, getting that, developing those clear understanding of how the partnership is going to work together and what it's going to do. That's really fundamental to ensuring success. And finally, at the peak of the triangle, if you will, this notion of collective purpose and goal or goals. Really having that clarity and consistent understanding of what is the North Star or what is the animating purpose of the collaborative, of the partnership that's holding partners together. Again, developing that element is essential to success over time. Um, what I really like about this framework, though, is it recognizes that as important as those structural elements are, they're insufficient um, to allow a partnership or a collaborative to really flourish and come to life. And that's where those binding elements come in. The binding elements really reflect more of the qualities that become embodied by partners and are really critical to moving above and beyond basic functioning to really being able to allow the partnership to fully realize its potential for accelerated and transformative change in the landscape. And the metaphor that I use in talking about the collaborative capacity with the Catalyst Fund is is really one of a door and keyhole. And so when the structural elements of collaborative capacity are resourced and developed, and when the binding elements are attended to and intentionally cultivated and stewarded, a suite of partners can come together and can turn in lockstep and unlock the door of potential, if you will, to accelerating conservation and stewardship outcomes within communities over time. And that's really what we're driving at with the Catalyst Fund. And so, yeah, there's a lot more information in the applicant guidance document on this, and would encourage folks to turn to that. Hopefully, it's a resource that's helpful. And as you think about your proposal, we really encourage you to reflect on how you see your partnership in its current form, reflected in this framework, and where you're hoping to utilize Catalyst Fund resources and support to strengthen or build new collaborative capacity to better position you to achieve your outcomes over time. Um, so with that, just moving into some nuts and bolts logistics of the Catalyst Fund grant cycle this year. Um, we have approximately $400,000 in funding available to regrant this year. And that means we anticipate awarding 16 to 17 grant awards. Um, we accept proposals for 1 or 2 year requests of up to $25,000 in total. Applicants must be 501(c)(3) organizations within the United States to be eligible to apply. The exception there is that applicants in the American West that are applying to the tribal-led partnerships portion of the fund can do so under IRS Code Section 7871 or directly as tribal nations. Um, Finally, there's well, what I should say too is we're fully cognizant that most landscape partnerships are not actually standalone formal 501(c)(3) organizations. And so oftentimes an eligible organization, either a formal fiscal sponsor or a core partner organization of the partnership, um, will apply on behalf of the partnership. So happy to navigate more questions on that as they emerge. The last point here is a one-to-one match is required. In-kind support can contribute to this match requirement, but at least 50% of that match requirement, or $12,500, should be direct support. The exception for the match are for tribal-led partnerships, where no match requirement is required. Um, the We run the Catalyst Fund application process through an online application portal. The link is on our website, and when you're ready, you can access it there. And the proposal really boils down to 5 questions, which are on the screen here. Don't feel like you have to scramble to write these down. We have a preview of our um, uh, proposal form on our website, and you can look at that and see these questions and a little bit more context too. We do have a Word document option that is available only for tribal-led submissions, although we do encourage you to use the online application portal if that's possible too. This is the last slide I want to touch on right now, and the the Catalyst Fund does couple the financial support of grants with a capacity building program through an in-depth peer learning cohort for funding partnerships. We invite funded partnerships to select a representative to participate in a cohort for this 2-year program. The program consists of monthly sessions and in-person convening. And we view this as a really powerful opportunity to create space for exchange, learning, inspiration, growth. And the hope really is that by bringing you all together from across geographies and contexts, we really can collectively learn and benefit from the experience, insights, observations that are emerging in differing landscapes, and collectively just further catalyze the growth and development of the individual partnerships. So super excited about that component of the program. I'm going to pause there, and we're going to pick up a lot more questions as we move forward. But I've asked Kelly Watkinson to join and provide some background on the Land and Climate Grant Program, which again we're working to align with this year so that Catalyst Fund applicants can apply simultaneously to the Catalyst Fund and LTA's Land and Climate Grant Program. And so, Kelly, I'm going to stop there and turn it to you and invite you to share some background.
All right. I'm assuming you can see my
Looks
slide.
great. Yeah, it looks
Okay,
really good.
awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. And I'm very excited to be here with you today. And actually, just listening to Jonathan talk about the program, I'm even more excited about this alignment. Than I was. I think we recognize that, not every partnership or collaborative project for the Catalyst Fund is going to be a fit for this what we're calling a climate planning add-on. But I think for the right projects, when it is a good fit, it could really be magical. So yeah, just really excited for the opportunity to give this a whirl. So as John mentioned, my name is Kelly Watkinson, and I'm the director of the Land Trust Alliance's Land and Climate Program. I've been working with this program since we launched it in 2017, so about 8 years now, which is crazy. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Land Trust Alliance, we're a nonprofit land conservation organization working to strengthen land trusts and land conservation across America. Through our land and climate program, we're working towards our mission with climate change in mind. So ensuring that land trusts understand how to be smart about climate change as they continue to save and steward land, as well as understanding how to promote solutions to this threat that are consistent with a focus on maintaining high value and functional landscapes. Our program has three primary goals that include increasing the number of organizations whose strategic plans and conservation activities address climate impacts, promote climate resilience. We're also working to advance the use of land through restoration, protection, and management to maximize nature's ability to keep greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. We also hope to grow support for climate response efforts through our work, through inclusive outreach, through communications, as well as community engagement. We work towards all of these goals through offering trainings, re-grants, technical assistance, and the development of written resources. And I'll share some of those with you later. Over the past 3 years, the Land and Climate Program with our partners have distributed more than $1.2 million in grants and technical assistance. So working with land trusts, I recognize the Land Trust Alliance recognizes the power that partnerships can have in increasing conservation impacts on the ground. Focusing on climate change specifically, we also recognize the need to plan at a larger scale geographically, since a lot of the solutions often need to be strategically connected over large landscapes. So because of this, landscape partnerships are really well-positioned vehicles for effective climate planning, or at least I think so. So seeing the opportunity to both connect landscape partnerships with the work of land trusts and to advance landscape scale climate-informed conservation planning, joining forces with NLC really seemed to be a no-brainer in my mind. So since this is our first year kind of testing out this formal collaboration, we're learning as we go. So please be patient with us. But we tried to create a process that streamlines the added support, optional support for climate planning to the Catalyst Fund program through one application point. So our intention is to have some coordination on the review process, but once the awards are awarded or decided, the Catalyst Fund and the Land and Climate Grant Program will be separate agreements and have, separate reporting requirements. Our reporting requirements are not terribly onerous. And then we believe that this will really benefit grantees because not only will they have access to the 2-year peer-to-peer program that Jonathan and his team run, but they'll also have some additional technical support and climate planning expertise that Land Trust Alliance and our partners can bring to the table, in addition to the grant funding. So the Land and Climate Program goal is to build the capacity of those who protect and steward land to integrate climate change considerations into their decision-making, specifically around climate resilience, climate mitigation, and adaptation to climate change impacts. To be competitive, proposed projects should result in one or more of the following deliverables. So this is a little bit different from, the Catalyst Fund, where we kind of have a final product that results from the work. So this would be a land protection plan that targets land protection for climate adaptation and or mitigation, a land stewardship or management plan that also addresses adaptation or mitigation, a climate communication plan that promotes the adaptation or mitigation work or actions that the organization or the collaborative is taking. And then also renewable energy siting plans, which really develops a decision-making matrix or policies to guide the organization or the partnership's engagement with renewable energy siting on conservation lands or lands of other important natural or cultural resources in the service area. So in this process, Land Trust Alliance members that are part of a collaboration would be the applicant on behalf of the collaboration and would be the one responsible for signing a grant agreement as well as submitting the reports. The Land Trust doesn't need to be the same applicant as the Catalyst grant. They just need to be the applicant on the climate add-on. And there's a spot in the application where the Land Trust name can be entered for that purpose. The eligible and ineligible costs for grant funds are listed here, as well as in the RFP documentation. I'll just point out that staff time, as well as like a reasonable indirect costs are fine to include in your budget, but general operating support is not eligible. There is no formal match requirement for the climate planning grant, but applicants will be asked to report on the total climate planning project budget. So this is especially important if the funding requested is not sufficient for the scope of the proposal itself. In these cases, showing that you have additional resources to accomplish the work will really be critical. And the grants you can apply for are up to $20,000. In the proposal, you'll be asked to describe the science, data, or knowledge that will be used to ensure climate impacts are understood and addressed. So while we don't require the use of a specific data set or approach, we do provide a list of recommendations in the RFP. These include utilizing the Nature Conservancy's resilience science that can be accessed through the Resilient Lands Mapping Tool. The Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science has adaptation workbooks and adaptation menus that are really good. The Open Space Institute has a lot of great resources on making decisions about carbon on the landscape. And those are just a few. There's more in the RFP. And if you want to dig deeper into kind of this idea of climate planning and see some examples, we on the Alliances Resource Center, which can be accessed through our organizational website, landtrustalliance.org. We have a variety of additional case studies and project examples specific to this work. These are just a few on this slide that come up if you type in climate planning case studies in the search bar on the Resource Center. These also are some other examples at the bottom of the page for the Land and Climate grant page on our website. There's a curated list of resources from our past grantees. These include examples of climate-informed conservation plans. There's a number of story maps, as well as communication products that were developed through our grants. We also have a recording of a webinar where we've showcased 3 land trust climate planning projects, so you can kind of get a better idea of what some groups have done in the past. Projects will be evaluated on the following criteria. How impactful will your project be for informing near-term conservation decisions? Who is your audience and can their actions advance the project goal? Do you have clear steps to your process and will you have defensible science and data behind your work? Is the project likely to be successful? Who will benefit? How will they benefit? And then finally, before I hand things back to Jonathan or open us up for questions, I just have a couple tips. In my opinion, competitive proposals will show how your project will impact the way you operate as a collaborative or organization. Build on past work. This is especially important if your land trust partner or one of your other partners has received technical or financial support from the Land and Climate program already. You'll also should show how you're going to seek input from partners or individuals with connections to the land or those that are disproportionately impacted by climate change, as well as show how this might catalyze funding or help secure additional resources for your work. And that here is my contact information, and I just welcome anyone who has questions specific to the climate piece of this to reach out to me directly. Happy to answer questions or just brainstorm a bit about project ideas. All right, back to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kelly. And just to echo some of what you said, we're super excited to be partnering and aligning with LTA too. And as Kelly said at the top of her sharing, landscape collaboratives and landscape partnerships are, from our perspective too, just really uniquely positioned to support climate informed planning efforts. And so we're at that stage in the session where we're going to pivot to questions, and we have just just a looks like 20 minutes of time to pick up questions. Again, I have a set of questions that came in through the registration process. Folks could enter a question as they registered. So I'm going to start picking up some of those, but please, by all means, use the chat to continue to popcorn questions at us, and we'll field them as we can. So one of the questions that came in the registration process was a question around the time frame for this work. What is the time frame for the work under a successful grant? And um, the review process will plays out over the course of the summer months, and we typically have grant award decisions in August. And so what we say is anticipate a grant period starting on or around September 1st. And then it's going to be a 1 year or 2 year period of performance. And so anticipate, depending on what you request, it operating the Catalyst Fund grant unfolding until September 1, 2026 or September 1, 2027. Um, that is the timeline. Um, I had another question around more detail on what constitutes a short-term project-specific collaboration versus the more long-term enduring collaboration that we really focus on. I think of, short-term project-specific collaboration really being oriented at, for instance, bringing partners together to secure acquisition of a specific parcel, or to do to build a trail network on a specific parcel or property. Those are sort of more project oriented and time bound. And again, what we're really striving for are collaboratives that set up this enduring vehicle that create allows for collaboration across projects and across time in a way that's oriented towards pointing towards a better future for the landscape over time. Um, so hopefully that's helpful in that question. Had a series of questions around the peer learning, and I saw another question pop up in the chat, I think, too, around this, and questions around whether the peer learning program is required, and what that time commitment looks like. Um, we invite, what I would say is we invite people to participate in the peer learning cohort. And our hope is that it does turn into a really valuable space where participants are drawing a lot of value and finding value. Our hope is that people participate and see that value and realize that value, and also know that and participating are bringing value to colleagues and partners and peers across the landscape as well. And so we encourage folks to participate. We invite folks to participate. We would not take away a grant award if you did not participate. We're fully cognizant of the reality that capacity can, so many of these landscape partnerships are capacity constrained, and it is a challenge to carve out time. Um, the monthly meetings are 90-minute sessions. There's really no prep work in between sessions, and so we try to be very cognizant of the time commitment and the requirements and other responsibilities that you all are juggling outside of this program. And what I just a final note on the peer learning program, what I will say is it seems that people have really come to value and treasure that space over time, and it has been an incredibly beneficial and valuable space for participants to engage in. Yes, monthly for 2 years is a lot. I fully understand that. I see that comment and in the chat, and again, it's what our experience has been is that people derive a ton of value from those spaces. I had a question about are there opportunities for continuing support for organizations who have received funding in the past? Um, and and what that looks like. Current Catalyst Fund partnerships are not eligible to request new funding. We look at the Catalyst Fund through the lens of the landscape partnership, and so a single a partnership should not request renewed support for the Catalyst Fund. We don't look at the lead applicants. We don't filter everything through the lead applicant though. And so to the extent that a lead applicant has applied for a Catalyst Fund in a previous grant cycle successfully for a landscape partnership that are a partner in. And if they're a partner to a different landscape partnership, that lead applicant would be eligible to submit another proposal for that different landscape partnership. Again, everything is focused on the landscape partnership. And so to the extent that is a new landscape partnership, that would be eligible for receiving funding. Have a question around geography and size. Is there a particular sized landscape that this project, the Catalyst Fund, prioritizes for funding? What I would say is there's no fixed parameter on size. Typically, there's no fixed parameter on size, and context really matters. In some geographies, a smaller landscape makes sense, and in other geographies, landscapes may be larger. What I would offer though is typically we're sort of looking for that Goldilocks zone in terms of size. We want to see a landscape that's large enough to really transcend parcel boundaries, transcend jurisdictions, and allow for conservation and stewardship impact at an ecologically significant scale. But on the flip side, we want it to be small enough that um, it's feasible and possible to build social capital, to build relationships in place and within the landscape, and to really embrace that community grounded um, ethos and approach. And so again, no fixed parameters. Context matters. I think what we've typically seen is, maybe something like a Huck 8 or, million acre landscape is perhaps average for a Catalyst Fund applicant. But again, that's not a hard and fast parameter. And smaller landscapes can be highly competitive in the Catalyst Fund and larger landscapes as well. Um, I think what there was a question around examples of what kind of partnerships do fit the criteria, and I would encourage folks to we have a list of all of the we've awarded 85 Catalyst Fund grants to 85 different landscape partnerships through the first 6 years of the program. And I would encourage folks to look at those grant award descriptions, which are available on our website by year, to get a good sense of the type of partnerships that are rising to the top through the review process for the Catalyst Fund. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to try to pick up some of the questions in the chat, and apologies if it's going to take me a little while to filter through some of these. Question, we covered this a little bit in the um, the slides, I hope, but a question about fiscal sponsor. Again, we are aware that landscape partnerships oftentimes do not have a formal 501(c)(3). So I would say the vast majority of our proposals come from uh, host organizations, key partners, and/or fiscal sponsors, and that is entirely acceptable and appropriate, and doesn't negatively impact a proposal at all. So yeah, fiscal sponsor is perfectly fine for applying. We 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 don't give preference for we don't factor in the ability to participate in the peer learning cohort in the review process. And again, I think I spoke to the time commitment. And again, our hope is that that turns into a valuable space for you all. Um, Kelly, did you want to say anything about just land trusts and um, I think just to underscore the fact that um, we the lead applicant on the Catalyst Fund grant can be a different organization than the lead applicant on the Land Trust Alliance portion. But maybe just a word about um, the land trust. You answered in the chat already, maybe.
I think I tried to answer most
Yeah.
of the ones, but the only thing I'll add, and I've gotten a couple questions over email around this. I mean, I think that I mean, we would love to see that a land trust, has always been part of your collaborative, but and that they're a functioning member already, and they just become the one whose name is kind of written as the lead on the climate piece. Um, but if you are kind of bringing in a new organization such as the land trust to your work, and you can make the case about why it's not just to check the box to be able to get the climate funding, that they would be a valuable contributor now and moving forward. That's fine too. And part of this is we want to see more land trusts working with these cooperatives, so um, there's a little wiggle room there.
And I'm seeing the comment from Aaron in the chat. Maybe that speaks a little bit to what your concern, Aaron, around Montana collaborative efforts struggling to find willing land trust partners. Um, yeah, thanks, Kelly. Um, question about reporting process. I think similar to what Kelly said, we're really cognizant of the time demands on all of you, and collaboratives and partnerships are especially um, you can pour as much of your time into collaborative work as possible and still not have enough time. And so we're really cognizant about the burden of reporting and try to keep a really streamlined reporting process. We asked just for a really basic financial report in terms of final reporting, and then a very short narrative report um, on the Catalyst Fund Grant Award. So we really do aspire to keep that reporting process really streamlined. Um, I see a question around transboundary, cross-boundary, cross-border collaboration. Yes, the Catalyst Fund can support transboundary collaboration, U.S. Canada, U.S. Mexico, but the lead applicant and recipient of the funding needs to be a U.S. based 501(c)(3), and that again is just a product of the sources of funding and the restrictions that we have from the foundations that have provided the funding that allows us to run the Catalyst Fund. But cross-border, transboundary collaboration certainly is eligible for consideration under the Catalyst Fund. I'm seeing a question around match. The match should be spent during the project period of performance, and so previously expended match would not be eligible to count as match for the Catalyst Fund. Um, And again, it's a one-to-one requirement for match, but 50% of that or can be in kind contributions. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm also seeing a question around tribal-led partnerships. A tribal-led partnership. S- what we found with tribal led partnerships is sometimes um, tribes request that non-tribal NGOs or organizations submit the proposal on behalf of the tribal-led partnership. And so similarly to as I was trying to articulate that we view everything through the Catalyst Fund through the lens of the landscape partnership and not the applicant organization. The a proposal from a tribal-led partnership will have the match requirement waived, irrespective of whether it comes from the tribe directly or from a non-tribal organization that the tribe has asked to apply on behalf of the tribe. The one requirement we do have for tribal-led partnerships that come from a non-tribal applicant organization is that we have a letter of support from a tribe or a tribal organization affirming that it is a tribal-led partnership and articulating how the partnership is centering tribal interests and perspectives. Um, Thanks for all the questions. Keep them coming. I'm seeing one. Yeah, so I'm seeing a question, Shelley, around for grants for either grant. So let me offer a Catalyst Fund response, Kelly, and then maybe I'll put you on. It's the chat from 244. I'll put you on the spot for the LTA response. The Catalyst Fund, yes. If funding was requested to cover staff time to provide coordination support for a partnership, that position can be housed anywhere, including at an organization or entity or agency that is not the applicant organization. So the 501(c)(3) just needs to receive the funding, and then the position can be hosted wherever the partnership deems appropriate. So hopefully that's clarifying on that question. Kelly, do you want to color in for
Yeah, and
LTA?
that would be the same. I mean, the land trust wouldn't need to be the implementer or the administrator of everything. They would just be the receiver of funds. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks. Great. I'm seeing another question around a tribal nonprofit having a non-tribal nonprofit manage the grant. Yeah, I hope hopefully I've addressed that already in what I've shared, but just to reiterate, yes, it's entirely acceptable to have a non-tribal organization submit on behalf of a tribal-led partnership. And again, we would just ask for that letter of support. Um, as folks are signing off, I would just direct people to the Catalyst Fund page on our website for the RFP applicant guidance document, frequently asked questions. Those two will be really helpful resources, and that's where the link is to. I don't have a hard stop, and so I can continue to navigate questions a little bit. And please, if you have any final questions, drop them in the chat. But also recognize that we are at the top of the hour, and if folks do have commitments they need to run to, just know again how excited we are to be partnering to bring together this aligned Catalyst Fund, Land Trust Alliance, Land and Climate Grant Program, and how excited we are to hear about the amazing work that's happening in your landscapes all over the country. Um, so yeah, thank you. I'm going to keep answering a few questions that I see coming in, but please, by all means, hop off if you need to. And Kelly, I didn't connect with you. If you need to hop off too, please, by all means, do so.
Yeah, I do have another meeting that just started, but I will hang out for a couple minutes and show up a couple minutes late. I saw one land trust question that I'll address. Says, can a Canadian land trust be the lead for a climate grant? I know we do have a few Canadian land trust members who I would just say if they're a member of the Alliance, yes. If not, you could reach out, or they could reach out to me specifically to double check on that. I know there's like a coalition of Canadian land trusts that I think they're an affiliate member of ours, so we can look into it.
Yeah, thanks. That was the one I wanted to answer too, Kelly. So great to have you
And
feel.
there was the really long one about a particular project. I don't think it was climate related. Um,
Yeah.
but
What I would say with those really specific questions, spend some time with the RFP and the applicant guidance document. And if there's still a question, feel free to reach out directly. My colleague Sarah Mosser's email is in the RFP, and happy to talk specifics a little bit more detailed if that's helpful. Um, Typically, what I will say, typically the Catalyst Fund does focus on collaborative capacity much more than project implementation. And so, um, yeah, really working to build, to invest in the collaborative process in a way that allows partnerships to be better positioned over time. There was one question in the Q&A that I didn't get a chance to respond to. And I don't know, I'm not seeing Allison on still anymore, but there was a question about restrictions on source of matching funds. And there's really not much restrictions outside of that 50% needs to be direct match. Other than that, federal, non-federal is all appropriate. And again, hopefully that provides a little clarity. I think it's entirely possible that I've missed a question. It's a healthy chat log, which is always exciting. But
I don't think you have. I
all
tried
right.
to
All right.
track out. So
Well, it's great. Yeah. And it was great having you on, Kelly. So,
all
well, I think
right.
with that, why don't we wrap up and just say thank you so much for carving out time to join. It's really exciting to be able to connect with you all. And again, I do feel like this work right now is so critically important, and we are really thrilled to be able to support landscape partnerships across the country, and really thrilled at the prospects of bringing 16 or 17 additional Catalyst Fund grantees into the Catalyst Fund community, and really excited to be piloting this alignment with LTA's Land and Climate Program. So it'll be wonderful to see how this all unfolds coming the coming weeks. Kelly, thank you for joining. Um,
Yeah, glad to be here.
well, yeah, thanks everyone for carving out the time. Take care.